Gas bill paid, payroll done, table tennis table ordered. What's this?
A letter from Gary Fist.
Who the hell is Gary Fist?
He's an old monkey who's recruited an entire army of unloved puppet sidekicks with the sole purpose of coming here and destroying us all.
For God's sake, I'll deal with it later.
I don't think you realise how serious this situation is.
All right then, why does Gary Fist want to destroy us all?
It's a long story.
And it all begins over 20 years ago, when a young boy and his monkey went everywhere together. They were inseparable, the very best of friends. They'd play all day and then dream all night, until one Christmas, the boy unwrapped a Sony PlayStation with a bundle of games including Overboard, Actua Soccer Club Edition, and Independence Day the game. Suffice to say, with such cutting-edge digital entertainment available, how could a poor old monkey puppet compete? And so it was that Gary Fist was cleared out, discarded, and forgotten.
So you chucked him out and forgot about him?
Yes.
Like an old PS2 game you wish you could go back to?
Yes, good link, Dave. Here are 7 forgotten PS2 classics we'd love to play again, on PS4 preferably. Barricade the windows, he's coming. Our first forgotten PS2 classic is probably the least forgotten on this list, but looking back through my boxes of old games, I was still stung by the slap of reawakened memory as I saw Splinter Cell winking at me from dusty depths, which I thought was apt, seeing as how you spent almost all of your time in Splinter Cell creeping about in the shadows. It was a serious stealth game. It was quiet and slow, and the only sneak 'em up that's ever stopped me playing Metal Gear Solid for a bit. Michael Ironside's amazing vocal performance imbued protagonist Sam Fisher with electric power.
Do I have a choice?
He was like a coiled spring of stealthy sinew, slipping through the shadows, snapping the occasional neck, deploying gadgets that would have even Q Branch blushing. I remember the lighting in Splinter Cell being particularly impressive. And it had to be, as it formed the foundation of the game's stealth. Darkness was your friend, but light was so intense you felt like a vampire caught in the sun. And man, it was beautiful for its time, especially sequels Pandora Tomorrow and Chaos Theory, both of which had me wondering how on earth video games could ever look any better. But really, when I think of Splinter Cell, I think of 2 things. The impossible wall-straddling split jump performed by a grey-haired 40-something super spy, and the noise. You know the one I mean, the noise, when you pull down those iconic trinoculars. Oh, yes, I know they'd make Sam Fisher stick out like a sore thumb, 3 glowing green lights in the darkness, but seriously, who cares? Not me. In fact, I'd love to play it again, Sam. Come back whenever you like. Next up, we've got a game called Chaos Legion, which has probably just provoked one of 2 reactions. A, what the hell is Chaos Legion? And B, Chaos Legion? What about Onimusha? Well, reaction B, people. Look at the title of this video. It says Forgotten PS2 Classics, doesn't it? And you remembered Onimusha, Chaos Legion's sexier, more successful, and admittedly better cousin. But even though Chaos Legion wasn't a massive critical success, there was still something about it I really liked. There are obvious things like the, at the time, gorgeous gothic visuals and the reactive, instantly gratifying third-person combat, but it was something beyond that. Maybe it was the names of all the characters. Your protagonist was Sieg Warheit, which literally translates from German as Victory, Truth. Then there's silver-haired baddie Victor Delacroix, which translates from French as Champion of the Cross, and Victor has stolen a naughty book called The Apocrypha of Isaac. Isaac translating as crazy. spelled backwards. Which I loved because it reminded me of the time when I wrote awful derivative fantasy fiction in my teens and my bad guy was sealed away in the depths of Erif Niantum, which is Fire Mountain spelled backwards. Chaos Legion was just cool, and it felt like a secret only I knew about, a den to which I could retreat and where no one would judge me. Don't pretend you liked Chaos Legion 2, only I did. Go away. Our next entry is Summoner, an RPG released early in PS2's life cycle and developed by Volition, yes, the team who then went on to make Red Faction and Saints Row. Summoner is proof they didn't always make games about 6-foot cat men battering people round the head with massive purple dildos. They once made this actually very serious action RPG, which I bought because at the time it was literally the only RPG on my new console. And I didn't have a clue how to play it. That's it, there's no story here. I literally just fumbled around for 20 hours, not knowing what I was doing. And yet still somehow had the best time. This was a wonderful palate cleanser after a gaming diet that had, until then, been filled almost exclusively with melodramatic turn-based JRPG fireworks. Summoner was deep and dark. You know how all good fantasy yarns start with your leafy home village being destroyed. In Summoner, you did that. You being Joseph, an unremarkable farmer with unremarkable summoning powers. The combat was a mix of turn-based and real-time. It was littered with side quests, and to me, at the time, it seemed impenetrably enormous. Towns were actually town-sized, not the 3 static screens of shops, inns, and a save point I was used to. The characters were flawed and complex. The story got its hooks in me, and I want it on PS4 so I can actually try and understand it this time. Next up, we've got Black, a cult classic often considered one of the most stylish first-person shooters ever made. This is what happens when Criterion, of Burnout fame, get their hands on guns instead of steering wheels. Everything explodes, as you'd expect, but unlike many other shooters, it's not cacophonous. That's because the sound of the game was deliberately designed so all the guns would create a sort of warped harmony. And it really worked. Rattle off a machine gun in Black and your senses react in much the same way as when you start up the engine of a really sexy sports car. There's a deep thrum to the gunplay in Black, enjoyable on a base, animalistic level, as if the chug-chug-chug of the bullets have awakened some kind of lost instinct. Then there's the balletic way the enemies die, flinging their arms and legs out like movie stunt performers, careering dramatically to their deaths, the environment bursting into tiny shards all around you. I think Criterion said it best when they described Black as gun porn. It's unrealistic. At the time it looked better than anything else, and it sort of made you feel guilty for enjoying it as much as you did. The video game equivalent of having chocolate for breakfast. Number 5 is God Hand, a typically mad beat-em-up from the mind of Shinji Mikami and the talented team at Clover Studio, the people behind Beautiful Joe, which you could also stick on this list to be fair, and Okami, which ranks inside my personal top 10 games of all time. The only thing God Hand shares with those aforementioned classics is brilliance. Otherwise, it's unlike anything you've ever played, an unapologetically eccentric homage to button-thrashing arcade brawlers, packed with outrageous combos, sound effects that snap and crack with every impact, cut through with a sharp streak of knowing humour. God Hand is like a video game B-movie. It sort of reminds me of those bargain bin kung fu flicks you'd pick up from your local video store. You know what you're getting with those. Subtle drama? No. Ridiculous fight scenes that continuously unravel and surprise? Oh yes. Plus it's got a cast of characters so mad they make Alice's Wonderland seem as bland as cardboard. Our penultimate entry is Grandia II, a JRPG that has everything you'd expect from a JRPG. A young, brooding hero, although this one has a parrot voiced by Colonel Campbell. An always 3 steps ahead of you villain who's related to your brooding hero. A stoic man-mountain party member whose diamond-hard pectorals guard a heart as soft as melted butter. And a pious white mage with a demonic alter ego. Grandia II stood out for me when I played it all those years ago, for 2 main reasons, however. The first reason is the battle system, which I don't think has been bettered to this day. Another one of those real-time, turn-based hybrid thingamajigs. It anchors combatants to a time gauge, but then lets you perform skills that cancel enemies' attacks, pull enemies towards you, or scatter them away. It's simple, elegant, and satisfyingly tactical, without resorting to the rock, paper, scissors, fire, ice, water template most JRPGs offer up as a cerebral workout. I mean, ice monsters are weak to fire in Grandia 2, obviously, them's the rules, but there's so much more to sink your teeth into with this battle system. If you played Child of Light a couple of years ago, you'll know what I mean, as Child of Light basically just used Grandia 2's battle system. But anyway, the second and most important reason I loved Grandia 2 so much is that when your party gets to an inn, you get an amazing little cutscene where they all sit down and have a meal together while chatting about the story up until that point. I know. Amazing, right? I could watch this for hours if it didn't make me so hungry. There was nothing better in Grandia 2 than thrashing a boss and then sitting down watching Marek devour an entire bird, or Rowan delicately butter his bread, and Ryudo glug his JRPG juice, whatever it is, I don't know. Wonderful. Just let me play this again and add a trophy for watching 5 hours of meal times, please. Last entry, The Getaway. Remember this? When GTA used to have a rival in the open world crime 'em up department? Except The Getaway was like a licensed GTA set in London. Taking inspiration from classic British gangster movies, The Getaway was designed to look and play like a film. No HUD, no health bars, no massive floating arrow telling you where to go. You had to look at the indicators on the cars to get that information. It was amazingly ambitious and about 2 generations ahead of its time because, let's be honest, this is the kind of thing we'd be applauding nowadays. The Getaway was so committed to immersing players in its gritty cinematic depiction of London that it was delayed for over 2 years so developer Team Soho could get the photorealistic render of our fair capital done just right. And you've got to hand it to them, it looks like really grey. And if you've been to London, you'll know that means they flipping nailed it. Also, I love how every character is a slightly different shade of Harry Redknapp. Oh, he's killed me trouble and strife, so I better get out the apples and pears and shoot him with this gun. Alright, geezer. Love it. And there's our list of 7 forgotten PS2 classics we'd love to play on PS4. Let us know what your picks would be in the comments. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and join us again next week for another Friday feature. Thanks for watching.